No,
Share
let's,
yourself out.
we're live now.
All right.
Good day, good people. I hope all is well with you as it is with me. I'm Light Bear, and we have today with us.
DOD. And again, Light Bearer, thank you so much for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
No problem. I love it when you come on my show. I love being on yours.
Thank you.
So, yeah, let's get started.
Tell me your name, Wicked One. He who commands you with the orders he's thrown down from the highest heaven into the depths of hell. In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. I now command you. Tell me your name. Here, therefore, and fear, Satan, enemy of the faith. Give me your name, demon. Names. Names. Ancient serpents, depart from this servant of God. Tell me your six names. We are the ones who dwell within. You shut your head with Togai, Queen Hobby Cobbin in the road. In case of parrot, and you die. Nickling you, Anablia. And I am Lucifer, the devil in the flesh.
Well, that's how I view this whole case situation. This is how I see them as trying to pull them demons out of her right now, and
Yeah.
because of course she does have BPD, right? And the thing about it is, I would like to play that other video. I wish I had where I could do two screens at once, two videos at once, but I barely can do one right now because my computer is acting up. But there's one video where she was talking to the psychologist well, the psychologist was talking about how her communication and how BPD people are going to how they communicate. And so while she's on the stand, I'm gonna go ahead and play this video of her, but I'll stop it every now and then to point out her demonstrating her use of her evil. Because remember, we all have evil, right? We all have good and evil. But the thing about it is, some mental illnesses was considered to be a possession at one time in ancient times. And even today, we kind of think of those things as, people don't want to call them what the doctors deal with, the way the doctors and scientists deal with it. So we pass it off as the person just is battling the spirits within themselves.
Mhm.
So uh it's kind of there's a movie and it's called Evil, It's a mini series, I think, and it's on. I want to say it's on Stars or on Paramount. Definitely on Paramount, but it's called Evil, and it's about psychology and mixed with um mixed with spirituality. So the lawyer, well, she's not a lawyer, but she was a investigator for the prosecutors or for the defense or whatever. And she would go and investigate the inmates, this inmate on what's going on with him. Then was another guy who was a spiritualist. So he went in to see if the guy was possessed. He saw the guy as possessed. She saw the guy as trying to figure out what his psychological issue was. And she ended up working with the spiritualist. So she's a investigator, but she's kind of she's kind of skeptical about the spiritual world, about the good and evil and all that stuff. She doesn't think that a possession of spirits or demons is making this man do what he does. She wants him to be accountable for what he's done. So she's trying to, you know, get answers for the lawyers. And she quits that job and just like I said, goes work with the spiritualist. And then all these spiritual things start happening to her. And she's still skeptical, even though she has a demon coming in her bedroom at night and stuff like that. But she's still, you know, hold on a second. Good night. But she's still taking on these spiritual cases. So this is way I see the whole thing, the psychological issues and everything. I see it as because this girl, she was sick way before she came to Hollywood. She had literally murdered her best friend in a car accident, a car that she was too young to be driving. She has her family, I think her mom feared her. Her mom passed away. Her mom recently passed away. Her mom and her dad both are on Johnny Depp's side. They both supported Johnny Depp because they knew how their daughter was. Her sister, Whitney, I think that's her sister's name. Even she fears her. She fears her so much that she got out of having to come to court because she didn't complete her deposition. She got out of having to come and testify. There's been some deaths surrounding the whole situation, and they just summed it up as cancer. Hold on. They sum these people's illnesses up as cancer. Hold on a second. I think I got too much background noise. Hold on. Okay.
I didn't hear anything.
You didn't hear nothing in the background?
No, just when you opened and closed the door, that was it.
Oh, okay. But her own sister fears her. But they try to hide all this stuff. They've hidden it. They've been lucky to hide it. But even if they hide some things, eventually things are going to come to surface. And this woman, like I said, she is using her evil, but she's not like you and me using our evil. If we're using our evil, it's going to be because somebody's using their evil, like somebody like her is using her evil. So we have to use our evil. But she's a manipulator, and she has, the way I see it, this is what I'm going to tell you, what I've come to terms with her. What I've have come to a realization. There's a thing called get them before they get me. And I think because she's been with Elon Musk, she's been with Franco, she's been with some Mexican dude, and all of them have abuse on them. Well, except for I don't know about Franco, but I know the men in the past, and also a woman in the past that she dated. That she was like, I don't know whether it was her wife or what, but she was abusive towards them. So, there's a thing called get them before they get me. So I suspect that sometimes an imbalanced person would have that in their mind, and they would act upon that. You know what I'm saying? I have to be the one to exert force within the relationship before they do it to me, because she's probably as a child, I don't know. That's just one side of what from my observation, that could be a possibility. Always be a possibility with people. So when their children helpless and they get attacked, then when you grow up, you're like, I'm never gonna suffer under this again. So I'm gonna have to be the one on top of the game. You see what I'm saying, DOD?
I hear. Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to be the one in relationships that is going to ensure that I don't get hurt physically. Or then, like I said, the other scenario of her is that she knew all the time what she was planning to do. She was methodic and had planned to get close to Johnny Depp and marry him, and then take all his money, basically steal all his stuff.
Yeah.
Like a fan, like a crazed fan who's watching, and then like those Element movies where the person plans to coming back and seek revenge on somebody that don't even know who they are anymore.
Right.
But they show up at your door and they want to be the nanny for your children.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, like
Awesome.
kind of the hands to rock the cradle.
Yep.
Kind of thing, like this vindictive situation. But let's get on into the video. This is her day one on the stand. Let's see if it works here.
Okay. And what is your profession?
I wanted to begin the beginning of the whole thing. Okay, there. So y'all can see every inch of what's going on.
All right, thank you. All right. Thank you, Your Honor. Will you please state your name?
Yes, it's Amber Laura Hurd.
And what is your address?
I live in Yucca Valley, California.
And how old are you, Amber?
I am 36. I just celebrated.
Okay. And do you have a daughter?
I do. She also celebrated her birthday recently. She's 1.
Okay. And what is your profession?
I am an actor, mostly.
Okay. Now, why are you here?
I am here because my ex-husband is suing me for an op-ed I wrote.
And how do you feel about that?
Okay, right there. She admitted to writing the op-ed. Now, in this whole case, they're trying to put. They're trying to say she didn't have nothing to do with the op-ed because she's getting sued. She's been sued for defamation. But she just now said on the stand she's been sued for writing the ad.
An op-ed,
Yeah,
right?
writing it. Yeah, she's been sued. She's being sued currently for writing it. She didn't say, I'm being sued because he thinks I wrote the op-ed.
Or allegedly.
Because I allegedly wrote the op-ed. She didn't say none
Right.
of that. She said, I wrote the op-ed.
But she
So right
said,
there, the mind of a person that's imbalanced and they trying to exert evil towards you, this is, we're seeing that it's not working for her. But you're going to see her try her best at it.
I struggle to have the words. I struggle to find the words to describe how painful this is. This is horrible for me to sit here for weeks and relive everything here.
And also her mentioning that she's got a 1-year-old baby, it was all strategy as well.
People
Yep.
that I
She don't care nothing
knew,
about that baby.
some well, some not. My ex-husband, with whom I shared a life, speak about our lives in the way that they have. This is the most painful and difficult thing I've ever gone through.
To speak about their lives, well, she put it out there, and everybody knows she put it out there, but yet she's saying that doesn't make much
Sure.
sense.
Now,
but she's
there
claiming
was a
Huh?
trial in the
She's claiming
UK in
victimhood.
July of
Yeah.
2020 where Mr. Depp had sued the Sun newspaper and Dan Wooten. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And what was your level of participation in that lawsuit, in that trial?
Well, I was not party to that lawsuit. I was a witness. I suppose the primary witness, since it dealt with the truth of the relationship that I shared with Johnny.
And what, if any, role did you have to play with respect to, for example, witness statements and testifying?
Objection, compound.
I said, for example.
Overruled. I had to write, I think I gave 7 witness statements under oath testimony. I sat on the stand for 4 days under mostly cross-examination. And up until this point, it was the hardest thing I had ever had to do.
Thank you, Amber. I'm going to take you back, and if you can just tell the jury a little bit about your background. Tell us where you grew up.
I come from Austin, Texas, a small town outside of Austin that you probably haven't heard of. No one has. It's called Manor. And I was raised by my mother and my father. And I grew up with a little sister, although I have a big sister as well.
And your little sister's name is?
Her name is Whit Hurd.
And how much of an age difference is there between the two of you?
Whitney and I are about 1 year, I think we're 16 months apart. So right next to each other.
And what did your father do for a living?
My father broke horses and did construction.
Okay.
He painted houses.
Here, she grew up poor, but she's going to flower it and make it sound like she grew up pretty decent. But she tells everybody else that her family, her mother and father were on drugs. So just listen.
Um, and hunted and fished, but that was for fun.
And what did your mom do?
She worked for the state of Texas.
Let me just, since you talked about the breaking horses, can you just tell the jury what your role is in assisting your dad on that and what is involved in breaking horses?
Projection leading.
Can you just tell me about?
Overruled. You just got to stay on, basically. I would help him. I was more of a crash test dummy. You know, when you train a horse, it's a wild animal. It doesn't necessarily like to be ridden. And there are people out there who are crazy enough, like my dad, to pick that as a profession, I guess. And he was really good with horses, and I was the son he never had. So it was my job to, stay on.
And what, if anything, did you learn from your father about how to react to the horses?
Well, with training horses, I guess the key things are to not show fear,
Okay.
not get intimidated, not show fear, be tough and calm.
Tell the jury a little bit about your educational background during those growing up years and your work experience.
I worked.
Here, she didn't even graduate from a regular high school. I'm thinking that maybe she went to a troubled kids school. I don't see
Yeah.
it.
Any job that I
She's
could
gonna
from
tell
the
you she
time
went
I
to
was
the
really young. I
rich side of
wanted
town
to
Catholic school.
get out of Texas and do something with my life and see things and do things. So I was in school and really pushed myself to. I just always pushed myself to be able to accelerate the process. I wanted to, get out of school as fast as I could, and I wanted to do more things with my life than stay in Texas.
So what types of things? So where did you go to school when you were younger?
I was a scholarship kid at a Catholic school growing up, several different Catholic schools, but they were always in the other, on the other side of town, in the wealthier part of town. And I grew up quite working class, and thankfully with, as long as I maintained an A average, I enjoyed the benefit of a scholarship, and I did that until I realized that I could take my GED and SATs early, and I did that and placed out of school and effectively left school at 16 years old, I believe.
And what did you do for work during those younger years?
I took any job that I could. I worked at my father's construction company, sometimes, just administrative stuff. I mean, it was a small company. But I answered phones, and I worked at a modeling agency that was also, offered photography classes, makeup classes, hair and makeup classes for people that were pursuing a career in entertainment. And I started taking classes that I paid for by working there, effectively as a trade. And I eventually worked there long enough to be able to pay for my headshots, which are the pictures that you use in the industry to promote yourself, in whatever, acting, modeling, or both.
And what, if any, charitable work did you do when you were still young?
it started off as a requirement for the school I went to, and then I liked it so much. I think because it meant I wasn't at home, and that was important to me, is just to not spend time at home. And I really loved meeting people. So I worked at the soup kitchen every morning before school, during the school year, for about 4 years. I didn't go on weekends, but on weekends I would do various things. Worked at children's museums, typically, because they would work with younger volunteers, and mostly soup kitchens and things involving children. I worked at the with deaf kids for a while, and yeah, I love it.
And when you worked with deaf kids, what, if anything, did you do to learn to be able to work with them?
Objection leading and 404. Irrelevance.
It's
Overruled.
irrelevant. It has nothing to do with
Well, I taught myself how to sign basic sign language, and then I pursued it. I audited a course at the community college, which I ended up going to get out of high school early later on. But I would audit classes. The teachers never wanted to kick the random 12-year-old out of their class, I suppose. So I remarkably was able to audit, I think, the majority of 2 semesters, and that's also helped me learn.
So how did you end up in Los Angeles?
I did a small job in Texas where I played a part in a movie, and the actor in the movie that I was playing opposite had an agent visiting him from LA, and I met her on set, and she said that she had heard about me from another bit part I did. I was taking jobs in Austin for really anything, to be an extra, to apply I did makeup once. Nothing, no job was too small or, for me. So I put myself out there, and she'd heard about me, and she said, I have heard about you in this town, and I'd love to meet you in LA if you're ever out in LA. And I was like, when can I come? And she made an appointment with me for the following week, and I used all but $180 or something to get out there. And I landed. I didn't know anyone. I was 17. And I've effectively been there ever since, I suppose.
Hey, that guy from Texas.
So when you arrived in Hollywood, please tell the jury what you did to get moving there, get going.
I went to every audition, every casting, every meeting, every appointment that I could. I put myself out there. I didn't have a car because those were expensive. So I took the bus around LA. It was before smartphones. I had a Thomas guide in my bag and a change of tank tops. Not that it mattered, but I went to about 10 auditions sometimes a day, and would change clothes if I needed to in the back of the bus I was taking. And I just hustled from one audition to the other. And I got a bit part on one thing, and then I got a bit part on another thing. And then eventually my roles kind of became more important or bigger. And it's been a slow progression, I guess, since then, of doing either tiny bit parts in bigger movies, or doing, larger roles in movies that no one would see. And I guess, it still is kind of like that.
So I'm going to ask you to go from 2002 to 2009. If you could just describe for the jury a little bit what types of parts you had. I think they've indicated you have not been well known here in this courtroom compared to Mr. Depp. So perhaps just take them through a little bit of that.
Yeah, that's fair. I did small roles in big films like Zombieland and Pineapple Express, and movies that were well known. My first one was Friday Night Lights. But again, I had small roles in those bigger films. And then I would do larger roles in kind of smaller films. Like I did a project where I was the lead in a John Carpenter film, and he came out of retirement to do that. And that's kind of how it was in terms of my career for those that first initial 10 years or so. It was just going from slightly bigger role to slightly bigger role, and just working my butt off.
So I'm going to take you up to 2008. Did there come a time that you auditioned for The Rum Diary?
Yes, I auditioned for that in about 2008, I believe.
Please describe for the jury your experience in auditioning for The Rum Diary.
Well, I auditioned a few times, which is common in my work. You know, you get a call back, as they say. And I think I had at least one, maybe two callbacks with the director. And then I got a call saying that Johnny, who at the time was, I think I knew that he was producing it as well, was doing a project that was something very personal to him. He was reprising his role as his late friend, Hunter S. Thompson, and it was a very important project to him, and that he wanted to meet me in person. I thought I would be going for maybe an audition, but it was just a meeting. I went to his office and met with him for a few hours.
No.
And what did you talk about during those few hours?
We talked about books
Leslie Jones.
and music, poetry. We liked a lot of the same stuff, you know, obscure writers and, you know, interesting books and pieces of poetry that I haven't heard anybody else reference or know or like. And he was very well read and charismatic, and you know, I think I left the office with a few books that he gave me, and we the whole time just talking about things that we care about. And I was so surprised that somebody, you know, I knew who he was. I wasn't familiar, you know, I wasn't a fan of his work. I wasn't familiar with him, but I knew who he was. You know, he's one of the most famous people in the world. So it was already a weird thing to go and get called into his office. And, you know, I'm a no-name actor. I was 22, I think. And I thought it was unusual. It was weird because he was twice my age, and he's this world famous actor. And here we are getting along about obscure books and weird, you know, old blues. And we just, I thought it was remarkable. You know, I thought it was unusual and remarkable. I left there just feeling like, wow.
So did there come a time that you learned that you were going to be cast for the role in The Rum Diary?
Yes, a few days later, my agent said that Johnny's going to call you. We gave him your phone number. I was like, oh, okay. And shortly after, my phone rings, I pick it up, and I hear, you know, this like deep voice on the other line. And he said, you got you know, you're it, kid. You're the dream. Hunter wrote this part, and you're the dream. You're it, kid.
Please describe for the jury what that means. What was The Rum Diary and this Hunter Thompson? What was the concept here, and what role were you playing?
Well, it was my understanding that he was bringing to life his late friend. And what he told me was that this character is supposed to be the dream woman, like the dream, American dream. And so I knew what he meant. He indicated to me when he told me I got the role that I was that, you know, I was the dream kid. That's what he said.
So did there come a time that you started filming The Rum Diary?
Yes, I'm not quite sure how much. I think we started filming in maybe March of 2009.
And where did you film The Rum Diary?
We shot it in Puerto Rico.
And describe, if you can, the events of the filming and your interactions with Mr. Depp during that time.
it was a bit surreal, you know, filming in a place like Puerto Rico. It was beautiful. It takes place in the 50s, so everything really looked beautiful. And you know, cars and clothing, the music. It was a very colorful shoot in general. I couldn't have asked for, you know, a better scenario. I was on film. I mean, I was on set, reading my books, and occasionally Johnny would talk to me, and then he started to be really kind to me, like more open with me. When we'd have hot days filming, you know, there'd be this big SUV pull up, and a security guard would kind of usher me into this car, and it would have the AC blasting. And I'd be sitting in the back of the SUV, just thinking what a strange experience the whole thing was. And, you know, we didn't really have a whole lot of interaction on set until we did a scene that involved kissing. We had a kissing scene, and it didn't feel like a normal scene anymore. It felt more real. There are certain things that you do in the job to be professional, like when you have to do that sort of
I'm sorry
scene,
about that.
and you don't like
I don't know how that happened.
you don't use your tongue if you can avoid it. There's certain things that you do to just maintain a certain line, and it just felt like those lines were blurred. I mean, he grabbed my face and pulled me into him and really kissed me. But we were filming a scene.
Did he use his tongue?
Yes.
Okay. Did you celebrate your birthday while you were in Puerto Rico?
I did. I celebrated, I think, maybe my 23rd birthday there.
And what, if anything, did Mr. Depp do for your birthday?
Well, we were already kind of talking about books and poetry and things like that. He gave me a few really beautiful poetry books. And he gave me a bicycle, like a vintage bicycle, because at the time I was riding around on a bike, and I had a lot of time off since I was a smaller role in the movie. And yeah, I think that was it.
Okay. Now, did there come a time that you ended up visiting him in his trailer?
Yes, I think we would hang out if, you know, after or in between scenes or in between setups. We often were, you know, talking about things, and would continue the conversation into the trailer, often with the director. Bruce Robinson was his name. And then at one point we talk about wine. It's another thing that Johnny and I shared in common, a love for wine, red wine. And we were talking about a kind of wine that I enjoyed, and I was, you know, going on about how great this bargain wine was, and I didn't understand, you know, how much more sophisticated Johnny's taste in wine was. So I was going on about the virtues of Malbec or something, and I brought him a bottle of this wine, and I set it down. And at some point, I'm going back to get back to set, and he kind of kicked his, like, you know, foot up in the air and basically kind of lifted the back of my bathrobe up. And
can I just stop you there? Why were you wearing a bathrobe?
Because I was doing a scene. It was a period film, so it took place in the 50s. And so I had all of this old undergarments that are for that time era on. And the scene involved me changing. So I had all the costume on. And he kind of picked up the back of my robe with his boot. And I kind of turned around and like laughed, like giggled, you know. I didn't know what to make of it at the time. And I just kind of giggled and batted it away playfully. And he kind of playfully kind of pushed me down on this like bed sofa that was in his trailer, just playful. and flirtatious. And he
Now she's
said,
trying to make
yum.
him out to be some
And he kind of like lifted up his eyebrows like that.
pervert groomer.
And I just giggled, laughed it off, kind of batted him away, and, you know, moved on, went back to set.
And were you in a relationship at that time?
I was.
Okay. And was Mr. Depp in a relationship at that time?
That was my understanding, yeah.
Okay. And did anything else of significant happen during that time period while you were filming with Mr. Depp, other than what you've told us?
We just had this, you know, it was a friendship, flirtatious thing. I felt chemistry. I felt this other thing that went beyond the pale of my job, for sure. Johnny clearly felt that way about me, had indicated to me that that's how he felt in many different ways. But at the same time, you know, we were both in relationships, and it is a job, and, you know, it was intimidating. And I just remember feeling kind of intimidated and a little nervous about that. And I also was in a relationship, so we went our separate ways, and I didn't hear from him for a long time.
And that's, so approximately how long were you filming in Puerto Rico for The Rum Diary?
A few months is my best
All right.
guess.
And when you left Puerto Rico in the filming, when is the next time that you had any contact from Mr. Depp? And contact could include anything, communications, written communications, as well as telephone or otherwise.
We had no contact until Johnny called me on the phone one day, and I was driving, and he invited me over to his home in California, in Beverly Hills. And I it was out of the blue. I didn't even have his phone number. So it was quite unexpected. He called me a second time, but I don't think we actually connected, or we didn't stay on the phone, because we didn't really speak. But the first time was the only time I actually spoke to him, and he invited me over to his house under kind of he said that, you know, we could get Bruce, who was the director, to come over, something about the movie, but it was clearly not about the movie, if you know what I mean. It was, so I said, I said, my friends are in town, and I'm busy with that, and kind of hung up, feeling really startled, you know, that didn't know what else to do.
What, if any, gifts did Mr. Depp send you during that time period after you filmed The Rum Diary?
He sent me several gifts. He sent me a beautiful dress, one that I wore in the movie, with a beautiful handwritten note, said
This
"Happy
is where
Wrapping,"
she makes like he prayed upon
and
her.
made a reference to the
Like he's
dress
a
being wrapping
stalker.
paper.
Yeah, like he prayed upon
He
her.
sent me a few gorgeous, expensive,
See,
what I can only assume are expensive,
usually with older men,
collectible books, items.
it's the younger girl.
And
who
then
makes
when
stuff
I
like
was
that.
away filming on a different job, he attempted, or he did send me some guitars.
And it's
I know one
flattering
delivery.
to the
I was
older man.
informed about one delivery, and my partner at the time intercepted the attempt to deliver, and called me immediately and said, "What should I do?" And I said, "Well, send it back." And she did, and she indicated that there was, at the time, there was another one that had already previously attempted delivery, and it was also rejected. I sent it back because I wasn't there, and I wouldn't have accepted it anyway.
Okay. Did there come a time that you ended up having to go on a press tour for The Rum Diary?
I got a call for the Rum Diary press tour in the fall of 2011.
So that's close to 2.5 years after you filmed?
I'm an actress, not a mathematician, for a reason. Roughly, yes.
Okay. And could you please describe for the jury what a press tour is? Just explain it to them.
When you take a a movie once it's completed, and if it doesn't have distribution, you, as part of the promotion of that movie, you go to these various places, normally cities like London or New York, and you do press events in those cities to kind of promote the film, and you go to place talking about the film.
And so you were then called to participate in the press tour for the Rum Diary?
Yes, I had I had just finished going through the process of separation with my former partner, and I was moving and going through that, and I got a phone call saying, remember that movie you did in Puerto Rico? Well, they want you for the press tour. And I said, well, perfect timing. And we did that, I think late October 2011.
Okay. So describe for the jury your interactions with Mr. Depp during the press tour.
Well, on the first stop, the beginning of the tour was Los Angeles, where we both lived, and we did a press day, normal press day. And then at the end of it, I was invited by Johnny to come up to his room to have a drink with him and the director of the film. And I went up to the room to see both him and Bruce. But as soon as I got there, Johnny said Bruce wasn't going to make it. So I stayed. Johnny and I started talking. He asked me about my relationship. I said, well, you know, I'm going through it. I'm going through the separation right now, and it's been, you know, rough couple of months, but that's normal. And he said, well, that's same with me. You know, it's been, I can't remember exactly how long he said it had been, but that he had split from the mother of his kids, and said that he understood.
I get from her that she
Right,
always
and then what
acts
happened
older
next?
than her age.
Then we drank red wine and continued to talk, and the talking became us, you know, reconnect. You know, it was like reconnection was almost instant. It was just chemistry. It's hard to explain that, but we sat on the couch and we talked, and you know, it felt like there was it felt like there was an electricity to the room. And so I felt when I was alone with him anyway. And it was instant again. I was like, whoa. So on the couch, we talked, finished some wine, and then I got up and left. And as I went to leave, he grabbed both sides of my face, similar to what he did in Puerto Rico when we were filming that scene. And he kissed me, and I kissed him back.
And what happened next with respect to any relationship with Mr. Depp?
Well, then we fell in love. We went on this press tour, and we went. It was a beautiful and strange time. You know, we're flying from one, not together, but you know, going from one city to the next, Europe, New York, Los Angeles, as I said, and we're just traveling around talking about this movie that we did together, that we participated in together. And we were falling in love. I mean, it was just, you know, at the first dinner in London, he sat me next to me. You know, he produced the film and was a part of controlling the film and was responsible for different things than I was as an actor having a small part in it. And we went on this press tour, and I think in London he had me sat next to him at a dinner, and then we ended up spending the night together in my hotel room. And for the rest of the press tour, it was on. I'll put it that way.
All right. And how long approximately did the press tour go?
I don't know exactly how long it lasted. I think, you know, there were press engagements in this city for a few days, and then another city for a few days, and then there was a break, and then there was another press opportunity, I believe. So it was kind of spread out over maybe a month, if I'm guessing.
So when you returned to Los Angeles, what, if anything, took place with any relationship with Mr. Depp?
Well, once we were back from the press tour, we had this, whirlwind romance kind of just in these like beautiful places all over, and we're falling in love and not able to really show it because he wasn't, the world didn't know about the split between he and his former partner. And of course, as a woman, I was like, is that troubling? And I'd ask him, no, he swore to me that they hadn't even shared a bed for a year, and that they were protecting the kids and not publicizing it. So, or not making it known to the press. And so we kind of had to be a little bit under the radar, not a little bit, we had to be really under the radar. Because as Johnny pointed out, that the world would blame me and call me a homewrecker, even though I had nothing to do with it. So we were secretly dating, and then, it was beautiful. It was, I felt like
$1 million.
this man knew me and saw me in a way that no one else had. I felt he understood me. I felt he understood
Well,
where I came from. I felt like
in her.
I felt that, like, when I was around Johnny, I felt like the most beautiful person in the whole world.
Say more than 6 spirits.
It made me feel seen, made me feel like $1 million. And
Felt like that $1 million.
that kind of feeling where, it's just lavish gifts and lavish expressions of love, and how he had never met a woman like me. I mean, I remember he took the foil off of this bottle and put it on my ring finger, and I had only been with him like days, or maybe it was weeks at the time. Yeah, it was probably about a few weeks, but it just felt very intense. But we weren't doing normal life stuff. We weren't like stuck in traffic with each other. We weren't going to the grocery store and doing life. We were like hiding in these places around the world. He has so many homes. And so we'd be in one of those homes, or my home at the time, and it would be like a bubble, like we were in this little bubble of secrecy, and it felt like a warm glow, as we would say. Just music and the kind of books that we both loved, and poetry that we both knew by heart. And it felt like a dream. It felt like absolute magic.
So while you're dating, I take it you're dating at this point, right?
Yeah, sorry,
While you're falling in love, you're also dating, right? Okay.
Yes.
Did there come a time early on that you ended up going to his Bahamas Island?
Yes. So shortly after, we, I think, started dating October of 2011, and as I mentioned, this bubble, where he'd come over to my house and not leave for like 3 or 4 days, just smoking cigarettes and playing music and reading poetry to me, or painting me, or, just talking. And then he would disappear, and there'd be just no way to get a hold of him, no way to contact him. At first, I didn't really think anything about it, but he disappeared at one point, and then came back and said he was dealing with some health issue, and would I join him in the Bahamas? And I think that's when I learned he had an island. And I was on a trip with a friend of mine in Spain, and it was for the holidays, and I kind of rerouted my trip so I could come and land in LA landing in Miami instead of LA, so I could go and meet him on the island. And he had Keenan come and meet me on that trip, like in Miami. I get off one plane, get onto another, and go and join him on his private island. And I noticed he was drinking Beck's, and tea, like lots of tea, like lots of tea.
Like lots of
And
tea.
I didn't foolishly think anything of it. I just, thought the man really seriously, I missed it before, but really, really loves tea. And we had this beautiful, I don't know, less than a week probably, trip in the Bahamas, a private island, beautiful sandy beaches. It's a scene that you just don't, I had never experienced anything like that. It was a beautiful place, a beautiful time. And I fell head over heels in love with this man.
So after the Bahamas, I assume you came back, and
I'm gonna
are we
scroll through
talking
some
now
of
early
this, so I don't
2012?
get to the-
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Really dirty to be an actor. Never mind that he was one. It was dirty that I wanted to do this job that I wanted to do, and I was doing the job of an actress. It was everything every time I was walking out of the house, he would ask me, "That's really what you're wearing, kid? Oh, I see." I wore a dress to an event once, and I felt beautiful in it. Like, stupid as that sounds, I felt pretty in this dress I picked out,
You
and
didn't pass up the part with the B.
I showed it him because
Dog.
it's a carpet, it's red carpet, so it's like, publicized, and I kind of thought it was weird. He wasn't saying anything about it. I left him to go do this red carpet, and I was like, "Did you see the the event I went to?" Basically, I felt pretty, and I thought, like, "Did you see that?" I wanted him to say something about that, I guess.
So Johnny
And
Depp was trying to save her
and
from
he said,
the other side
well,
of Hollywood.
this is after he stopped talking to me
But
for some time, didn't tell me why. When he came back in my life, he wouldn't explain
he didn't realize
why he
that
was acting different. He just kind of acted mad at me. And
he didn't realize that she was the other side of Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? She's having threesomes. She's already been out there.
Yeah.
So I guess he thought she was this little innocent thing that he could mold into this great actress. But
Right.
she already had a reputation. She still has she's still building upon that reputation because they're saying around the YouTube that she walked into Kevin Costner's shower scene.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
know what I had done wrong. And when I brought up the dress and the event, because it was an event to support a charity I was really involved with at the time, and I said, did you see that thing? And he said, yeah, I think the whole world saw that, kid. That's how they'll remember
She was
you.
the last
That's how the
one.
world will remember you.
She's
I was like,
vile. She's out there.
oh, come on. I mean, it's like, but I felt good in it. I felt good. And he said, yeah, kid, that's what you're putting out there in the world. No one will ever forget that. And that's all they'll see you as. That's what you wanted. That's what you were going for. My dress was low cut. I get it. It's low cut. But I felt, I felt really embarrassed and horrible that I wore that. I felt like, how could I have made that choice? Of course, he's right. You start to believe it. I started to believe that made a lot of sense, of course. But it didn't stop with that. It was clothing in general. And when I walked out of the house, it wasn't just like, hey, you're not allowed to wear that. It was like, oh, really? That's what you're wearing. No wonder you get cast in those roles. No wonder you that's what you are. That's what you're making it. And it continued. And then there would be a blow up. And at first it was just to throw something, smash some things. It loves to smash up a place, an apartment, furniture. That's what it started with. Glass. Threw glass at me, and I remember it was summer. And he just threw this glass across the kitchen, and it didn't hit me, but shattered behind me, and I remember thinking that it like very easily could have hit me. And that calling me a
That
horror,
wouldn't be my first
it didn't
thought.
start with using the
That could
horror
have
word.
very
It was
easily
just
hit me. No, my first thought
comments,
is get the hell out of
until it would escalate. And then
Get
I
the
started to
hell out of
notice the
Dodge.
pattern of escalation where he'd
Shoot.
throw glass or turn over a table. Then he would hit the wall, and then he'd hit the wall really close to my head. You know, like when I'm standing there, you know, just hit the wall, screaming at me. But then he would disappear and get clean and sober, and he'd come back and tell me
Somebody
he-
did a
he
funny
was done
video
drinking,
on
he
this.
was over it, he was done, cleaned himself up. He'd done it before, and he'd do it again. And then he would go back to this like wonderful, like
I'll show you guys
almost like
afterwards.
just unreal, like real, you know, but unbelievably nice, sensitive, kind, warm,
I think I'm
generous,
gonna go ahead and find that
interesting,
video.
funny man that I loved. And he would make me feel so loved. Like I would feel so distant from that thing that was so scary that I would not even recognize it too. And that was how, you know, our relationship kind of started to develop in that first year.
Do you remember the first time that he physically hit you?
Yes.
Please tell the jury about it.
It was it's seemingly so stupid, so insignificant. I will never forget it. It changed my life. I was sitting on the couch and we were talking. We were having a normal conversation, you know, just there was no fighting, no argument, nothing. And he was drinking, and I didn't realize at the time, but I think he was using cocaine because it was like there was a jar
Cocaine in a jar.
of cocaine out on the table. I realize that sounds weird, but it's like
Yeah, it does.
an actual vintage jar of it. But I didn't see him use it at the time, so I didn't really factor that in. I just, you know, he's drinking and we're talking, and there's music playing, and he's smoking cigarettes, and we're sitting next to each other on the couch. And I asked him about the tattoo he has on his arm. And to me, it just looked like black marks.
So he's
Like I didn't know
drawing
what
and
it
punching the
said.
wall, and you
It just
asked him
looked like
about a
muddled,
tattoo?
faded tattoo that was hard to read. And I said, what does it say? And he said it says wino. It says wino. And I didn't see that. I thought he was joking because it didn't look like it said that at all. And I laughed. It was that simple. I just laughed because I thought he was joking. And slapped me across the face. And I laughed. I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. I thought, this must be a joke. This must be a joke. Because I didn't know what was going on. I just stared at him, kind of laughing still, thinking that he was going to start laughing too to tell me it was a joke, but he didn't. He said, you think it's so funny? You think it's funny, bitch? You think you're a funny bitch? And he slapped me again. Like, it was clear
You think it's funny?
it wasn't
B?
a joke anymore.
You think you're a funny B? You think it's funny B?
And I stopped laughing, but I didn't know what else to do. You know, I didn't know what to do. You would think you would have a response, but I, as a woman, had never been hit like that. I'm an adult and I'm sitting next to the man I love, and he slapped me for no reason, it seemed like, and I missed the point. It was that stupid. Second slap, I know he's not kidding, but I don't know what else to say or do, so I just stared at him. I didn't say anything. I didn't react. I didn't move or freak out or defend myself or say, what are you doing? You're crazy. I just stared at him because I didn't know what else to do. And he slaps me one more time. Hard. I lose my balance. At this point, we're sitting next to each other on the edge of the couch, or I was on the edge of the couch. And I'm all of a sudden realizing that the worst thing has just happened to me that could possibly happen to you. I realized that I wish so much he had said he was joking, because it didn't hurt. It didn't physically hurt me. I was just sitting there on this carpet, looking at the dirty carpet, wondering how I wound up on this carpet and why I never noticed that the carpet was so filthy before. And I just didn't know what else to do. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to react. I just sat there thinking, how much time do I have to figure out what I need to do? Because God, did he just hit me? No, I didn't want to leave him. I didn't want this to be the reality. I didn't want to have the man I was in love with. I know you don't come back from that. You know, I'm not dumb. I know you can't hit a woman. You can't hit a man. You can't hit anyone. You can't just hit somebody because I knew it was wrong, and I knew that I had to leave him. And that's what broke my heart, because I didn't want to leave him. I thought if I got up out of that room, I'd leave the best thing that ever happened to me. And I wish I could sit here and say I stood up and I walked out of that house and I drew a line and I stood up for myself. I was just looking at the dirty carpet, trying to will myself to get up, to walk out of the door, because I knew I needed to. And I really slowly, I stood up, and I remember looking at him in the eye and just looking at him, frankly, because I didn't know what else to do.
All the penthouses, and you saw all the
before I know it, he
glory
starts crying.
and wonderful things, and you're just like,
And you know, like
can't will
I've
myself.
never seen an adult man cry. I didn't even see my dad cry at my grandma's funeral. You know, it's weird. And he's crying. Tears, I mean, just falling out of his eyes. He gets down on his knees and he grabs my hands and he's touching my hands and he's saying to me, I will never do that again. I'm so sorry, baby. I put the fucker away. I thought I killed it and it's done. I thought I put the monster away and I've done it before. It's done. But on his knees. And I didn't have words. I didn't know what to say. I just remember thinking that it was just, he was crying. He seemed so sorry, but I knew I couldn't just forgive him because right? That means it will happen again, no? You know, like I've seen the health class videos, like everyone else. And I got up in my car. I walked to the car. I didn't say anything. I made a point to not say, oh, it's okay or anything like that. I just didn't say anything. I got up, I went to the car, I sat in my car and I felt like I sat there forever. I didn't want to turn the key. I just leaned my head up against the window. And I remember just seeing my breath on the windshield, you know, on the glass of the window of the door, just seeing my breath and trying to will myself to have the strength to know what I should do in this moment, because I was heartbroken. And I sat there for a long time and I eventually turned the key and drove home.
DOD.
Yep.
Do you think, are you buying which, are you
What
buying?
did you do after that?
Nope, not at all. Not at all.
I don't remember what I did when I got home. I don't remember. I went to my therapist. I told her.
Objection, hearsay.
I'll sustain as to what she may have told her.
I went home and I, a few days later, started getting, I actually don't know how many days later, but I started getting calls and texts from Johnny, you know, apologizing profusely. I mean, just, you know, he said, I'd rather cut my hand off than ever lay it on you or lay it upon you, you know, and he had that way of talking. It felt like poetry.
Movie,
And
From a movie.
he showed up to talk, like with the
script
understanding
from a
that,
movie.
you know, he understood I could never forgive him and it was done. So I felt kind of safe and saying, okay, let's have a talk, or, you know, yeah, we'll talk. I think you know, I know I just wanted to see him, and he comes over, brings me gifts. He brought me a couple of cases actually
this
of
was
that
before
Vega
they got
Sicilia
married.
wine that we've heard about, which is a really nice, expensive wine that I could never at that time dream of affording, you know. And we talk, and he tells me that he had put this thing away, that I could trust him, that it would never happen again. Of course, it would never happen again. That he had put this thing away. He had killed the fucker, is what he said to me over and over again. I put that fucker away. I killed that monster. I'll kill it again. It's done. I'll never lay a hand on you again. And I wanted to believe him. So I chose to.
So to stay in the relationship.
Yeah.
It was
I
hard
did.
to resist with the Marylands and his money and
I believed it,
the penthouses. And
but you know, I believed it wouldn't. I believed that there was a line he wouldn't cross again, and that was it.
it's hard to leave.
And so you stayed, correct? You stayed in the relationship.
Yes.
So is this a good time? You
No,
wanna do-
you can keep going just a little longer, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
So could you please describe for the jury the evolution of your relationship after that time with Johnny?
I don't know how long it was until things got bad again. He did start drinking again. I remember it was almost,
And after they got married.
you know, he'd start drinking again, the disappearing thing, the coming back. He'd come back like in the middle of the night to my house. And it would be unclear to me,
I'm
you know,
literally
drunk,
picturing him disappear right there.
often really drunk, and kind of accusing me, but not directly. Nothing was very direct. It was a lot of accusations, but they were veiled. You know, what I was wearing, who I was with, why didn't I text him back? I didn't text him back right away. This is when I was at my place in Orange. Sometimes he would show up to catch me. Like that was a pretext for coming over. And by the time we were done talking, I would have thought I had convinced him that I loved him, that I only loved him, there was no one else, and then that we were back in an upswing and would go back to good, loving, like sick, romantic love, like kind, sweet, velvety love. And then it would be something I said, why did you say it that way? You know, if I had to leave for an audition, I could guarantee that when couldn't guarantee, but 2 of those in a row. And when I came back, he was angry at me, you know, and I wouldn't necessarily know why. And then he started accusing me of things, probably like at first it was indirect and then it became really direct. Then the punching of the walls next to my head which is a constant at that time in 2012 when he was drinking.
Okay, they got married.
Eventually that became,
2014, 2015.
you know, him accusing me of cheating. I'd defend myself. I'd say, you know, that's crazy.
So this
You're
is
wrong.
before
I
they
would
got
never,
married.
the normal things. And
So I don't even know why she even
it would
agreed with it.
escalate to the point where he would push me or shove me down, and then I'd get back up. And this
Because the
happened
whole
several
thing
times.
is-
That's why
Let
it's
me
not more
pause this
specific,
for
I
a
suppose.
second. Let me tell y'all something.
When I get
This
back
is
up,
great.
I'd
Just
look
make
him in the
sure.
eye. I made a point of getting up and looking him in the eye.
Let me tell you,
It's my way of defending myself at that time.
she wasn't
And
married.
I'd look at him and he'd ask me if I wanted to go again.
She wasn't married to him at that time, 2012. And the thing about it is, she was in a position where if she is being honest about everything she's saying, she was in a position where she could leave. She was not married to Johnny Depp in 2012. They were just dating. If she is as innocent as she's claiming to be, and she's single in 2012, and he's hitting her, she could have found another rich man in Hollywood at that time. She could have found any kind of decent man if that was the case. But if I go by her story, it sounds like she was sticking with him because there was something there she wanted from him. And she's lying right now. She's not being truthful, because if you're just dating someone and that's part of dating, you're just seeing how they are. You're a single female in Hollywood. You don't have to be stuck with someone who's hitting you and doing all these drugs and doing all this alcohol, if you're being honest. If she's been honest about the condition, she could have moved on, did her career, and found another decent man. Just date, just date.
Right. Yeah.
She didn't have to stick with this. You got to think of the psychology. Why would you stick with someone that you weren't married to, but they're smacking you and they're not even saying anything to you? They're not joking. They're not laughing. They're just smacking you, and you're the one laughing like an idiot. This is how you know she's not telling the truth. This is the psychology of her evil, which is ass backwards, which is, it seems like to me, wired all tangly in her brain, tangled up, and it's all about self-destruction. Because no attractive, normal woman would ever, especially if you trying to pursue a career in Hollywood, why would you stick with, unless you have a methodic idea, a methodic plan? So this is how you know he didn't do anything to her. That it's all her, because in 2012, if he started doing these things to her, all she had to do was just leave, because they weren't
What year did they get married?
They didn't get married till 2015, because they got divorced in 2017. 15 months.
So 3 years after this so-called slapping, they got married.
Right.
She stayed all that time and married him as well.
And he was abusive towards her. And the whole thing is, if you're an actress and you're pursuing a career, you're going to meet many, many men in the industry. You're going to meet so many men. You're going to be dating. You're going to see how they are. You're going to decide if you want to be with whoever you want to be with until you meet that one. She sat up here, if you believe her story, she sat up here and said, "This one is the one, I'm in love," after 1 week. And he started smacking her, and he's a druggie and he's an alcoholic, but this is what she picked. This is what she chose. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with that picture. There's something wrong with that. Because you can meet any man. You just, when you're single, you try to get the best of the best. And she didn't. It just she stopped. She's saying, if anybody believes what she's saying about the slapping, she's telling us she stopped looking for the best of the best. She didn't even. So she never was the best of the best, basically.
Mm.
So, because she's lying. Because why would you be young, single, but you claim someone smacked you in 2012? You weren't even married to them, no obligations to them. And all the men that are in Hollywood with money, doctors, lawyers, everything, actors, singers, but you stop at someone smacking you and you pursuing a career as an actress. It doesn't make sense to me. Let's continue on.
And shoved me back down. Eventually, it just hit me. Remember, he hit me in the face when I denied having an affair with my ex-wife, my ex-partner at the time. And he said he had proof. I denied it. And I was walking out of the bedroom, slapped me across the face. I turned to look at him. And I said, Johnny, you hit me. You just hit me.
I'm going to ask you, Michelle, can you bring up 1783, please?
What number again, please?
I'm sorry,
What number?
defendants 1783?
1783. Thank you.
Do you recognize this picture?
Yes, I do.
And could you tell us what it is?
It's a picture of my face with a note that Johnny left for me by the coffee. Typically is where we'd leave notes like that.
And does this accurately depict the scene portrayed?
It was one of those scenes. As embarrassing as it sounds now, I don't know which scene this came from. There was a lot. It escalated quickly, fast, and it became.
Amber, let me ask it a different way.
Thank
you. Is this a picture of you? Is it an accurate picture of you?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'm going to move the admission of 1783.
Your Honor, we have an objection. May we
Okay,
approach?
sure.
His story does not make sense at all. It's reflective of her for not even been married to him, and he's already showing her abusive, and she's making like he pulled her in. And I see that it's not about him pulling her in, it was about her wanting to get more possessive.
Would you
and
please
controlling.
describe for the jury some of the cycles you had with Mr. Depp through 2012?
So in 2012, the violence was pretty, relative to what it became, pretty, slapping, backhanding. Well, it went from it went from this eggshell kind of, you're walking on eggshells, nothing you're doing is kind of right, but you don't know what you're doing wrong.
Why would you want to be?
And then I was doing something wrong clearly, but it was unclear within the scope of an argument what I was defending myself against. So it would shift from a rumor he had heard that I was with a friend, or I had been photographed standing too close to a male person. That was a person I had had something with, and I was lying to him about, and it would be eggshells, accusations, and then he would explode. It started with throwing things, destroying the property, and screaming at me. I remember the screaming at me was the worst, because I kind of always felt like I had done, I had to defend myself. I had to tell him, so he didn't think these things were true. And sometimes, he would shift accusations while I'm trying to dispel one accusation. He'd start another one, and
hold on, let me see. Let me pause this.
nothing I could do to calm him down. It seemed like I'd walk away, and that would make
Okay, if you met
it worse.
somebody,
I remember in my apartment in Orange, he would grab me by the hair, or he'd grab me by the arm, pull me into him, scream at me that way. He'd smash things around me. Then he would smash things very close to me. And then he would just hit me. And it started with slapping.
if you met somebody and they started dwelling on you and smacking you and stuff, calling you all kinds of obscenity, would you be out that moment, or would you stay in until they decided they wanted to marry you? What would you do?
No, I would have been gone the first time it happened. If it happens one time, it's going to continue to happen, and it's going to escalate and get worse and worse. So if she had half a brain, she would have known to got up out of that relationship.
Especially if she's trying to pursue a career as an actress, because in modeling school, what I learned was that you can't have no scars. You can't have so you got to protect yourself. If you're a hand model, you got to, that hand is what's making money for you. So you got to make sure you don't get no cuts and no bruises, no nothing on that hand. You got to walk around with a glove on that hand to protect that hand, because that's your hand that's making the money for you.
Right.
If you're a face model, a magazine model, you don't want, you want to stay away from anything that's going to cause any kind of disfiguration. You want to protect yourself.
Bruising, cuts.
Right.
Like that, yeah.
But she claimed she went to modeling school, but she had a career that she was trying to grow, right? But she gravitated towards a destructive person. So basically, she's lying. She's lying. She knows Johnny was helping her. Johnny didn't, this right there shows that she is lying, because you got to look at it and say, now she's young, she's pursuing a career. Unless she's deranged, why would she stay with someone that's gonna disrupt her life or her career? Not somebody that's building up her career, because he was building up her career. He was helping her. She's throwing these lies right now. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Lightbearer, before you start, to let you know I have to go in 30 minutes. So
okay,
17.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna just continue this. We do a part 2 or something.
Okay, sure. But like I said, I'm here for another 30 minutes. So
yeah, okay. Yeah, I
All
gotta go myself too.
And it got to be repetitive slaps, where he'd hold me in a position and slap me multiple times in a row. Then it would be eventually I later would either push him off of me or I'd try to get his hands away from me. I tried to, not in 2012 so much. At that time, I was mostly, my defense was I'd go some other place. Like, I don't know how to describe that. It was, I'd focus on something else. I'd stand up,
Why don't you go
look
to
at
your own
him,
apartment?
try to stand up to him that way. Later, I adopted other kind of strategies to deal with it. But at the time in 2012, it was, he'd have this blowout and then he would leave, disappear. And I'd be committed to not talking to him. I'm done with this relationship. I can't take it anymore. Said that so many times. And then he'd come back, clean and sober, telling me either he had a chip, he didn't have any chips, but he would say, I've gone to meetings. I have a sober companion now. I'm doing this program. I'm reading this. I'm doing this. And he was done with drugs and alcohol for good this time. And he'd come back in my life. And with the combination of him being sober and having gone through this horrible thing where I felt like my heart ripped out of my chest, like a relationship ending is hard, I think, for anyone, but ending under that circumstance is really painful. And so when he'd come back, it would almost feel like a solution to that. And it would feel great. And we would be good again. And he'd be extra nice and extra apologetic and extra loving. And we'd be back in the good bubble, the warm glow. And eventually it'd get bored and then I'd see him drinking again. When I started to get upset, noticing the pattern of the violence going with the drinking and drugs, then he started sneaking it. So it became less clear and I'd have to look for clues as to what he was on. So I just knew how to react, Johnny on speed is very different from Johnny on opiates. Johnny on opiates, very different from Adderall and cocaine Johnny, which is very different from Quaaludes Johnny. But I had to get good at paying attention to the different versions of him. 2012, I was in the beginning stages of this, just learning these patterns. I was just learning that drinking kind of correlated with the violence.
And did you confide in anyone about these issues you were having? I think she can
Objection,
say if she,
hearsay.
I think she can say if she told anybody.
As long as she doesn't say what she said.
Right. So did you tell anyone?
Yes, I did.
Who did you tell?
I told my therapist. I eventually told my mom.
And let's go ahead and take a look at Defendant's Exhibit 150. 150.
Your Honor, I'm going to object on hearsay. Yeah.
She did something to her lip to make it fuller, but they said what she did was a threading, which just pulls up. It's invasive. It's not invasive. It's not invasive, so you wouldn't see any scars. But it doesn't last but a few months. What she did, and you can tell because her lips are back thin again. She doesn't have an upper lip anymore. And she's been doing Botox and all that, but it's, when she wears makeup, she still looks older. So for Caucasian models and actresses, it does not make them look youthful anymore. When they start makeup, they start the Botox. I don't know. I guess they're just trying to keep the wrinkles away at that point because it really doesn't give them any kind of youthful look too much.
Right.
I don't think. I think it makes them look. I think makeup makes you look older. Period. and it makeup makes you look older.
Yeah.
And all this Botox and stuff, these women just don't know. It just makes them look. It just really makes them. How can I explain it? They still aging. It's
Yeah. Oh yeah.
it's just without the wrinkles. So it really doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
I guess they just trying to hide those wrinkles. I probably should fast forward a little bit because you said you're gonna have to go in here. Let me get past this part.
In the middle of the night, the constant accusations, like that sort of thing. I talked to her about probably from the very beginning. The fact that I was secret, I had to hide. I couldn't tell any of my friends that I was with him for a long time because he told me everyone would blame me for the split with him and his partner. So I had to kind of sneak around and kind of get brought to his house, typically in a secretive way, and then he'd come to mine in a secretive way, and it was just all very, so very isolating. And I confided with her at the very beginning on that sort of thing, and then later opened up to her about some of the violence. I did it gently. First I just wanted to have someone to talk to about how scary it was. The rage and the uncontrolled violence, the rage that this man had, and why it was
Objection,
pointed
Your
at
Honor.
me.
Hearsay. May we approach,
Okay.
please?
She's talking about some rage. Okay, I guess they went on break on that one. Hold on. I think it can almost be over with in a few
And
minutes.
take Johnny's hand and kind of, we start communicating. I don't remember if he immediately was accusing me or if it was sometime after. I wish I remembered, but we agreed that we'd go and talk about it in the trailer. So we walked to the trailer, and when we're in the trailer, Johnny, by the time we get into the trailer, Johnny tells me that I had been instigating the, and asking for this, and that I had invited it, and that I hadn't been honest with him about my relationship with this woman. And I didn't really know her that well. I mean, I actually don't know her at all, but I had met her. And I remember in the trailer, he's accusing me of lying about it, and that that I had something with her. I'm trying to diffuse that. I'm trying to calm him down. And he just turned all that, it seemed like he turned all that rage onto the trailer itself. And he just started smashing things. He picked up something on the table and threw it right into the glass cabinet. He hit with his hand a wall sconce. He cleared the tabletop on the little fold down, like kitchen dining room area in this trailer. I mean, it's a trailer, so there's only so much you can do. And he's screaming at me, just screaming at me. And I eventually go back into the bedroom area. He comes into the bedroom area. We had what I can only describe as it sounded like nonsense from him. It wasn't making sense. And I realized that he's just probably really high, because it wasn't making sense anymore. It wasn't like a direct accusation. He wasn't hearing me when I was saying I wasn't involved, wasn't cheating on him. I wasn't secretly trying to engage this woman in some sort of sexual affair. And then it became clear to me he was like looking for something. He cleared things off the bed. I went into the bathroom, and as I come out, he asked me where it is and how long I've been hiding it. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he says, you know what I'm fucking talking about. You know what I'm fucking talking about. Be honest with me. Where are you hiding it? And he kind of like makes to look into the bathroom. And I gestured to the bathroom, which was to my right. I kind of like gestured to him, and I said, like, what am I hiding, and where am I going to hide it? And we're standing in this little hallway area outside of the bathroom, and he starts, you know, what it feels like patting me down, or saying he's patting me down. I can't recall, but he ripped my dress, the strap top part of my dress. I had just dyed this thing myself pink, and it's just one of those things. I was like, you know, I just finished that dress. And he's like grabbing my breasts. He's touching my thighs. He rips my underwear off. And then he proceeds to do a cavity search. He said he was looking for his drugs, his cocaine, his coke.
I'm sorry. She's gonna sit there and let him dig up her butt. For real? Hey, New Earth, welcome. She really gonna sit there while he does a cavity search of her?
Yeah.
You know, that's crazy. If you want to end it right here, we can.
Okay, when you gonna do a part 2?
Yeah, we'll just finish it up for the week. Psychology of evil, the
When you gonna
mentality
do
of psychotic people.
it?
We'll continue tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Okay. What, same time?
Yeah, probably a little earlier because I think I might be free. Yeah, I should be free. Yeah, probably around, yeah, a little bit earlier in the day. Probably around, hopefully, let's say 10 o'clock,
My time or your time?
10 a.m. in the morning,
Oh, okay.
my time. Yeah.
So that's 7 my time.
Yeah. Will that be okay?
Let's see. Let's see. Can you do like around 8 or 9 my time?
Is that 11, 12, 12:30? Yeah, 12:30. How about 1 o'clock p.m.? We'll just
1.
go for an hour.
Okay, so that'll be 10 my time. So that'll work. Yeah.
Yeah, 1 o'clock p.m. Yeah, I'll set up the thing for 1 o'clock p.m.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Well, you have a good night.
Yeah, thank you, that guy from Texas, Person Kid 21, Unsunken One, New Earth. Thank you for being here. Please like and subscribe.
Yeah, guys, subscribe to the sisters channel if you haven't already.
Mhm.
And
'Cause
thank you. And hit the like button. And if you have the capability, share the live stream. Support the sisters.
definitely. So, with that said, true love, real peace, and the higher self within us, our souls. Till next time, peace.